A very good evening. You're watching Primetime News here on TV1. For the news first team, I'm Mariam Ganavijaya. Before we head on to our stories in detail, here is a look at your headlines.
Sri Lanka's latest effort to revoke licenses, imprison journalists and impose fines. Multiple factions strongly oppose government attempts to take control of the media.
මූලික අයිතිවාසිකම් කිහිපයක් කඩ කරන බව තමයි අපිට බැලු බැලීමට පෙන්නේ.
මේ හදලා තියෙන්නේ මේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 14 වෙනි වගන්තිය සම්පූර්ණ උල්ලංඝනය වෙන මේ නිකම් විකාරයක්.
මේක ත්‍රස්ත විරෝධී පනතෙන් කරගන්න උත්සාහ කළ බැරි වෙච්ච නිසා මේ වැඩේ මේක හරහා ගෙන යන බවක් තමයි පේන්නේ.
Social media activist Bruno Divakara arrested. Iran resumes execution of anti-government protesters after 4-month pause. Media Secretary Anusha Palpita tells COPA that Sri Lanka's channel ratings is a facade.
බැත්ත කතාව අපේ ප්‍රධාන මාධ්‍ය ආයතන තුනක් ඕකෙන් 300ක් විතර සල්ලි දීලා අරන් තියෙනවා. ඒ ගෙදරට සල්ලි ගෙවලා බඩු මල දීලා රුපියල් 30000ක් විතර දුන්නාන් පස්සේ ඒක තමයි රේටින් එක. ඉතින් ඒක එතනින් එහා පැත්තට යන්නේ නැහැ.
Sri Lanka's inflation slows again in May. Rupee appreciates further.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
On to your lead story, Sri Lankan authorities are once again preparing to bring forward legislation that would also pave the way to imprison journalists for their reporting, impose fines and also revoke the licenses issued to electronic media institutions. The Broadcasting Regulatory Commission is to be introduced via a new piece of legislation.
The Cabinet-appointed subcommittee, led by Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, completed the drafting of the legislation establishing a broadcast authority for the creation of a Broadcasting Regulatory Commission. This document contains multiple sections on electronic media that need to be taken seriously. It proposes for the establishment of a Broadcasting Regulatory Commission comprising 5 members. The Secretary to the Ministry of Media and the Director General of Telecommunication will serve as the ex officio members. The other 3 members will be appointed to the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission by the President. According to this document, the scope of the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission covers serious areas concerning the process of electronic media. The objective of the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission shall be to ensure to carry on the broadcasting services without any detriment to national security, national economy and public order. In addition, the objective of the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission is also to ensure that broadcasting services shall provide people true and accurate information as guaranteed by the Constitution. Further, the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission shall issue annual licenses for broadcasting services. In addition, another objective of the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission is to issue guidelines in respect of broadcasting to enhance the spiritual development and mental health of the people while safeguarding the social and cultural values and entertainment of the people. The Broadcasting Regulatory Commission will also be empowered to formulate codes of conduct to be followed by the broadcasting entities or persons in consultation with the licensed broadcasters. The new legal framework proposed by the Cabinet-appointed subcommittee led by Dr. Rajapaksa proposes to appoint an investigation committee to investigate complaints and make recommendations. The 3-member committee shall be headed by the Director General of the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission, and the other 2 members will be those with experience in the field of law or mass media. This committee may conduct an investigation upon its own initiative or upon the request by an interested person on any matter in which a license holder of any broadcasting service is involved in what may lead to a threat to national security, national economy, or may create any conflict among races and religions. A serious section in this document is that for the purpose of an investigation, the committee may, by notice in writing, require any person or entity to produce to the committee any specified document, specified written or oral information which the committee considers relates to any matter relevant to the investigations. It proposes that the committee shall have the power to enter, inspect and search the premises where the broadcasting service is being carried out with any entry warrant issued by a magistrate and take copies of or seize and detain any relevant records or document of such broadcasting entity. Upon the recommendations of the committee, the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission may cancel, suspend or impose a fine to the license issued to the broadcasting entity. In addition to the violation of any clause of the Broadcasting Regulatory Commission Act, the Commission can also take a decision on the license issued to a broadcasting entity if it had broadcasted anything that may create a threat to national security, economy or conflict among races or religions. It notes that any person who fails to comply with any direction or recommendation issued by the Commission or refuses to cooperate shall be guilty of an offence and shall be convicted after a summary trial before a magistrate is held and could also be liable to a fine or imprisonment or both. Any person or entity that engaged in broadcasting services aggrieved by a decision of the Commission may appeal against such a decision at the Court of Appeal. What is most interesting in this document is that it does not give a definition to the terms of broadcasting, broadcasting service provider, license and licensee.
Meanwhile, former Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media and current Member of Parliament, Dr. Charita Herath, says that the government, by introducing these new regulations on media, is trying to generate fear among the media institutions to fulfill their personal political agendas by doing so.
national economy national security
all this time we only had concerns on an issue when it affects the national security of the country. But now they have introduced a new term, national economy. What is this national economy? Can someone explain it? I would like to ask this from an expert in the field. Without a proper interpretation, no one can explain what this term is. The IMF might interpret this in a different sense, and President Ranil Wickremesinghe might hold a totally different interpretation of this term. Whose interpretation should we accept here? It's better if someone who knows this well come and explain it to the public. Please show us the boundaries of this term. This is a fallacy. Also, according to Section 18, subsection 2 of this proposed bill, a media institution, even the ones that are currently functioning, should tender an application and remain in the waiting list for 6 months. During these 6 months, the government holds the discretionary power as to whether they are going to accept this application or whether they are going to reject it. During this process, they are not going to consider the hard work these media personnel have invested so far to build up this media institution or their brand. This is why we need to have transitional provisions in this bill. The person who drafted this bill has failed to understand and identify the effect of these laws on the ones who are already in this industry. These new regulations are tailor-made for a country that starts up this industry anew. These laws might suit this country if we are in the year 1982. This act completely ruins and destroys the democratic structure of this country because this new act is in complete violation of the right to expression enjoyed by our citizens through Article 14 of the Constitution. This move will not do any good to the government but will be the reason for the downfall of this government.
In recent times, several attempts are being made to interfere with free expression of views by the people, to bring laws through which the freedom of expression, the freedom to disseminate information can all be curtailed by law. Sri Lanka Broadcasting Authority bill is very interesting because it proposes the establishment of an authority which will determine whether any news is true and whether any news is fair to be broadcast. Now, this authority is one that will be controlled entirely by the government. By the composition of it, the president, the minister will have a complete say in who is to be appointed to this authority. And so through this mechanism, it is sought to control what actually gets to the people, and severe measures are being prescribed for violation of this. Even licenses, ongoing licenses can be reviewed and even be cancelled by this authority. Another important aspect that most people may have forgotten is that a similar bill was brought in 1997. So more than 25 years ago, the government at that time brought a bill called Sri Lanka Broadcasting Authority Bill, identical name also. And what is most interesting is that that bill was challenged in the Supreme Court by none other than Gamini Athukoral, at the time the General Secretary of the United National Party and a very close confidant of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. And in a long determination delivered on the 5th of May 1997, the Supreme Court, in a way that it does not normally do, determined that the entirety of the Act violated several provisions of the Constitution, including Article 10, dissemination of information. This is a very, very important right of the citizenry, not just the right of the media to disseminate news and information, but it is actually a right of the public to receive news, to receive information.
What is the stance of the SLPP, being the ruling party, on the new laws imprisoning journalists, imposing fines and revoking the licenses of media organizations?
As a party, we are on a firm stance that the media should be independent and the media should be given the independence it needs. But if any person misuses the freedom of the media, appropriate action must be taken against it. I think we have seen how the freedom is misused when accusations are made without any evidence. We saw how the Rajapaksas were accused of stealing in mass media. Then the people of this country defeated them and empowered the good governance regime to reveal the thefts if they had actually taken place. The good governance regime finally realized that there was no such theft for them to reveal to the people. False accusations which are made without any evidence or evidence without any basis on the innocent people who have worked for this country can be regarded as a misuse of this freedom.
සාක්කියක් නැතුව කිසිම සාධකයක් නැතුව කිසිදු පදනමක් නොමැතුව මේ වගේ දේවල් ප්‍රචාරය වීම වල්බුරු නිදහසක් හැටියට තමයි අපි දකින්නේ.
The Samagi Janabalabege claims that the proposed Broadcasting Authority bill is not at all democratic.
We have a big suspicion that they are planning on doing something illegal through this bill. If a power to cancel license is given to them, then it is subjective and not objective. That means 4 or 5 people make all these decisions. We saw when certain films came out, the censor board had to censor whatever the minister in power and his followers wanted. This changes from time to time. If everything that they don't want is censored, then what will be left to show on channels? This is definitely against international protocols. We see this as an alternative for the anti-terrorism bill, which they failed. This is a blow to the democracy of this country. We would like to tell the government that if they continue these things, we will fight against it and defend the people's right to democracy.
ජනතාවගේ ඒ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී අයිතිය වෙනුවෙන් සටන් කරනවා කියලා කියන්න කැමතියි.
The Janata Vimukti Peramuna claims that the actions curtailing democracy must not be allowed.
This government is trying to silence the people. They are trying to silence the people who are not in favor of the government. There is an act called the International Civil and Political Rights Convention Act. It establishes the freedom of expression of the people. A bill is now being prepared to censor the conduct of the media. We know that media frequencies are given by the government. The government holds the upper hand in this. The government is trying to silence the people who are against the government. The government is trying here to establish an autocratic government by curtailing democracy and curtailing the franchise of the people and infringing the rights of the people for the freedom of expression. We believe that this must not happen. We have to defeat them. We are in the position that everyone respecting the democracy and human rights must come forward to defeat the conduct of Ranil Wickremesinghe and the Rajapaksas.
The citizens of the People's Struggle organization expressed their views regarding this at a media briefing today.
The Broadcasting Authority Bill is brought out with the aim to suppress social networking sites, media organizations, and to provide the people with the news the way the government wants. The government attempts to impose the restrictions that could not be brought up by the anti-terrorism bill through this Broadcasting Authority Bill. Now a problem has arisen. All these incidents, like the incident of Natasha Surya, Prophet Jerome, took place because of their social media pages. We have serious doubt if the government will cover up this issue, putting the issue of religion in front and attacking the freedom of speech and the right to information which is entitled to the entire society under the constitution. This is enough. We don't need any more bills. No miracle happened in this country because of these acts. The existing legislations are sufficient. But the problem is the enforcement of these laws. Every day a cabinet paper or a proposal is brought in trying to draft a new law. This government is insane. When the ministers have too much knowledge, they try to set up their own agenda. This is all a part of the agenda to retain the power. Therefore, no matter what act is brought, whether it be the Broadcasting Authority Bill or the Anti-Terrorism Bill, we will not allow the state media or any other media be threatened or for the people of the country to be intimidated.
While attempts are being made in Sri Lanka to introduce new laws to prevent reporting on the national economy, what happened to the claims that were made citing that a bribe of $250 million was solicited from the Express Pearl maritime disaster? Do you remember? Minister of Justice Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa made a revelation in this regard in April 2023. Again, on the 25th of April, the minister revealed names and account details. However, did not take responsibility of the information he disclosed in Parliament. The minister continuously stated that the information was given to the police and an investigation was underway. Who solicited the $250 million? Why is there no revelation regarding this bribe? The people are watching.
News first with the people.
In other news making headlines this evening, social media activist Bruno Divakara was arrested on Wednesday by the Computer Crimes Investigations Division of the CID.
Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Thalduwa said that Bruno Divakara was arrested for publishing comments made by Natasha Edrisuriya which sparked controversy. Bruno Divakara was informed to report to the Computer Crimes Investigations Division of the CID by 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Sri Lanka police said that a statement was recorded from him and thereafter in the evening he was arrested.
In the meantime, the Centre for Policy Alternatives has expressed deep concern over the arrests of individuals under the ICCPR.
The Centre for Policy Alternatives urges authorities to desist with efforts to restrict fundamental rights. The Centre for Policy Alternatives noted that it is deeply concerned with the recent arrest of Natasha Edrisuriya, reportedly under the provisions of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights Act, the latest move to stifle freedom of speech in the guise of protecting religious harmony. The CPA notes that this is not the only arrest under the ICCPR Act in recent times, where persons have been reportedly been arrested for content that pose a threat to religious and national harmony and national security. The CPA also notes media reports indicating the introduction of new laws meant to safeguard and uphold religious harmony is in a context where there is a plethora of laws with actual challenge not due to a lack of laws but to the lack of proper implementation of such laws and holding perpetrators accountable for incitement and violence. This is confirmed with Sri Lanka's recent experiences where despite the availability of evidence, no action was taken against alleged perpetrators. CPA urges authorities to desist with efforts to restrict fundamental rights and measures that erode the rule of law and weaken Sri Lanka's fragile peace.
In Iran, 3 men were accused of deadly violence against security officers during last year's anti-government protests, despite objections from human rights groups.
All 3 men were convicted of muharebe, an Islamic legal term meaning waging war against God, for using weapons, forming a group to undermine national security and incorporating with Mujahideen Ikhalik, a Europe-based group that Tehran considers a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, a revolutionary court in Iran began the trial of a female journalist behind closed doors on charges linked to her coverage of a Kurdish Iranian woman, Mahsa Amini, whose death in custody last year sparked months of unrest. According to Iranian law, the charge can result in the death penalty.
When a heart attack strikes, every minute makes the difference between life and death. With the right care and treatment at the hand of the most skilled surgeons and medical professionals. With the perfect environment for recovery. Darden's Heart Center, dedicated to you.
Moving on with more local news, Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media Anusha Palpita has said that the rating system of television channels is inaccurate. He made this claim at a meeting of the Parliament Committee on Public Accounts recently.
රේටින් ගණනය කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා මට කියන්න පැහැදිලි කරන්න.
ඒ රේටින් ගණනය ගන්නේ
The ratings are calculated by the LMRB Institute. 450 boxes have been installed in 450 unrecognized houses. In that, they get information on the TV channels viewed by those respective houses. But the true story is that 3 of the leading media institutions in the country have bought around 300 boxes for around 30,000 rupees each. That is the rating system. ITN came in third because it bought around 50 of those boxes. This rating method is completely wrong and filled with scams.
ඔබතුමාලා කරුණු කියනකොට අදරෑ මේ විකාශනය මේකින්ද බලලා
Keep the ratings aside. Let's talk about the reality. The reality is the number of people watching is very less.
We cannot say that either. Let's say someone publishes a wrong news item, even something minor.
That is what the media does too. The media does not publish news that is good regardless of how good it is.
Ratings of private media channels are higher than state media channels. State media hands are tied and they cannot show what the people watch. This is the fact of the matter.
There is an issue with those two. There is also a question of quality. For example, in recent months there were stories on environmental pollution. In our news, it shows the environmental scientist reading out the statistics. In other channels, those stats appear on the screen, so it is easier to grasp and more pleasing to the eye. This is not a major upgrade. Our media cannot edit it and put it on air. That is the true story.
Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kenji Okamura, met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
A meeting between President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kenji Okamura, was held at the President's office. The discussion was primarily focused on the progress of the IMF program between Sri Lanka and the IMF. Attention was also paid to the ongoing debt restructuring negotiations. Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kenji Okamura, met with Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe as well and assured support for economic stability in the country.
The Jana Aragala movement staged a protest opposite the Fort railway station under the theme Defeat the IMF Death Trap. The police riot control unit had also been stationed at the protest site.
Ranil Rajapaksa and his supporters are no longer rulers of the country. They are IMF dealers. These dealers and this president, who has no mandate, have teamed up to suppress the rights of the people. We must tell the government that although they are ready to be puppets of the IMF, we are not. No country has ever achieved liberty from the IMF. It is an institution that works on maintaining the global financial situation. They did not offer funds for the betterment of the people. They need to maintain their positions in the financial system. That is why they introduce all detrimental legislation. They have started their old games to prevent people from raising their voices. We will not be deceived by the racism and extremism of the Ranil Rajapaksa clan. We will not be deceived by the IMF deception. The government gets hold of any random event and incites racism and religious conflict. Clearly, this government moves from one conspiracy to another. This government acts according to the IMF's agenda. It is a puppet of India and America.
The Department of Statistics on Wednesday said Sri Lanka's key inflation rate eased to 25.2% in May from 35.3% in April, reducing some stress on the crisis-hit economy.
The Colombo Consumer Price Index reported that key inflation rate eased to 25.2% in May from 35.3% in April. The Colombo Consumer Price Index reflected a reduction in food inflation to 21.5% in May from 30.6% in April, while non-food inflation reached 27%. Moreover, the Sri Lanka rupee further strengthened against the US dollar. The buying rate of the US dollar was 287 rupees and 87 cents. The selling rate of the US dollar was 300 rupees and 92 cents.
The lumpy skin disease among cattle has threatened Sri Lanka's dairy industry.
The lumpy skin disease affecting cattle has spread to 35 of the 46 veterinary divisions in the northwestern province. The Department of Animal Production and Health noted that around 2,000 animals in the northwestern province are affected by the lumpy skin disease. Earlier, lumpy skin disease was reported from the northern and eastern provinces.
Dairy production will be low. The cattle affected by this would not eat well and the disease would last for around 2 weeks. Thereafter, symptoms will disappear. If you witness these symptoms, immediately consult the local veterinary office for treatment and advice. This would lead to low dairy production. An animal that produces 10 to 15 litres of milk would produce 2 to 3 litres due to this.
This does not lead to animal deaths and does not transmit to humans. We can't say that consuming the meat or drinking milk would be harmful. The animals that are affected by this would recover in a few days. This is not a very dangerous disease.
Sri Lankan authorities commenced administering treatment for the lumpy skin disease.
The Animal Production and Health Department says that vaccines to prevent the disease that is currently rapidly spreading among pigs should be ordered immediately. Its director KK Sarath says that the vaccines required to control this virus is not available in the country. This virus that is spreading among pigs in Sri Lanka has been identified in 4 farms in the western province. The Animal Production and Health Department also says the transportation of pigs out of their farms has been prohibited.
As this is a disease spread by a virus, there is no direct treatment for it. This is not contagious to people. The main impact of this disease is on those who are engaged in animal husbandry, especially pigs, as it will have an economic impact. If many pigs contract this disease, the number of deaths will also increase. This disease can also affect the reproductive system of pigs, and that could result in stillbirths. The meat of an animal with any sort of disease, not just this one, is not allowed to be consumed. However, this is a virus. Therefore, the virus will be destroyed when the meat is boiled in high temperature.
The Bathalegoda Rice Research and Development Institute says the spread of several diseases that are caused by worms are negatively affecting paddy cultivations. Its director Jayantha Senanayaka says that these diseases have been reported from many areas in the northern province and areas such as Batiklo and Dimbulagala as well. He says that the disease control process should be commenced as soon as it is observed.
We have approved 6 types of chemical substances to be used for this, and information in that regard can be obtained from the agricultural officer of that area. These chemical substances should be used on the crops. We must request all farmers to not use any unnecessary chemicals on the crops, and the use of strong chemicals could kill animals that are useful for cultivation, and it could increase the amount of pests.
The use of dynamite fishing has horrifying consequences for all life in the ocean since it kills everything in the area. But with Sri Lanka's crucial tourism industry experiencing a resurgence with large numbers of tourists visiting the island, dynamite fishing is now posing a clear danger to humans as well. A recent video taken underwater shows a terrifying encounter as a group of tourists accompanied by a diver faced the unthinkable in the waters of Trincomalee when a dynamite blast took place a short distance away from them. News First's Kenza Farooq brings us this report.
This is the first time that while we were diving that we got the sound on footage, but I didn't want to panic my divers underwater. But you could see, of course, after the dive we came onto the boat and we had to talk about it because they were curious about the sound. Unfortunately, we had to explain it to them, unfortunate situation that is occurring. However, when I inquired from the boat captain, he said it was like close to a kilometer away. When the sound, he just turned and then he saw a boat fleeing the area. Unfortunately, it's a sad situation that is occurring around the coastal areas.
Fishermen use various types of explosives to kill fish. So the most popular explosive type is dynamite. But dynamite fishing is very common in Sri Lanka, especially in the east coast, starting from Trincomalee and even in down south. Dynamite fishing is very much common. So in dynamites, what they do is they use explosives and they make a big blast within the water and create huge amount of energy. Because of that energy, also fish around this area is quickly killed. So dynamite fishing, when you dynamite the area, the whole area becomes so much devastated, and at the same time this high amount of energy that kills or destroy all the 3D structures like coral reefs, at the same time other three-dimensional structures, natural structures on the floor. So that literally make our bottom a flat area. Therefore, especially the fish and other animals don't get enough space to breathe or live. So at the same time, we are losing all the biodiversity. And we know that our biodiversity is a main hotspot for tourism, hotspot for fisheries. Therefore, fisheries and others that collapse. So when these sectors collapse, ultimately that impacting on our day-to-day life, our socio-economic conditions. So the people living in the coastal areas and people living in fisheries, people living in tourism, they get affected. At the same time, the biodiversity goes down. In Sri Lanka, it's banned, but still fishermen are using those blast or dynamites or in large quantities. Therefore, the all legal agencies, the enforcement agencies should take this as one of the major concern. At the same time, they should take much effort to.
This illicit practice involves the use of explosives, such as dynamite detonated underwater with devastating consequences. The Sea of Sri Lanka, a jewel of the Indian Ocean, where vibrant marine life dances beneath waves. Its coral reefs, teeming with kaleidoscope of colors, are a testament to the richness of nature's canvas. But lurking beneath this tranquil surface lies a threat that seeks to unravel this delicate tapestry. Dynamite fishing, an insidious practice that robs these waters of their vibrant life. But amidst the darkness, a beacon of hope emerges, a collective determination to protect the Sea of Sri Lanka from this destructive force. The Sea of Sri Lanka is a gift that we must cherish, a responsibility we must embrace. By raising awareness, implementing sustainable fishing practices, and advocating for stronger protection, we can ensure a future when dynamite fishing becomes a distant memory.
Moving on, the 21st session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation convened on Tuesday. It reviewed the progress made in implementing the Buenos Aires Plan for Action for promoting and implementing technical cooperation among developing countries, the New Direction Strategy for South-South Cooperation, the Nairobi Outcome Document of the High-Level United Nations Conference on South-South Cooperation, and the Buenos Aires Outcome Document of the Second High-Level United Nations Conference on South-South Cooperation.
On the first day of the forum, Deputy Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka, Sugishwara Gunaratna, made the following remarks at the 21st session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation.
The importance of common vision of development and cooperation by the Global South has never been more evident to combat the impact of the present multiple crises and expanding inequality. However, while working towards this common vision, we must be mindful of repeating familiar patterns of a world order, replacing one with another. Our aim should not be to repeat the actions that have brought global governance to the present state of crisis. Sri Lanka has enjoyed the support and partnership of both the Global South and the North as it cautiously takes its initial first steps in economic recovery and remains committed to the direction and framework for collaboration as identified by the BAPA Plus 40 outcome document as adopted in 2019.
An agreement was signed between the Korea Institute for Advancement Technology and the Ministry of Power and Energy to develop the first floating solar development project in Sri Lanka on Wednesday.
A $5.2 million grant was extended by the Korean Institute for Advancement of Technology to Sustainable Energy Authority to develop the two projects of 1 megawatt each floating solar. The projects will be developed by the Korean engineering companies and will be developed on Chandrika Weber in Sabaragamu province and Kiribban Weber in the Uba province. The project is set to be completed by December 2024.
The Executive Secretary of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, Dr. Robert Floyd, will visit Sri Lanka from the 31st of May to the 4th of June 2023.
During the visit, Dr. Robert Floyd is scheduled to pay courtesy calls on the President, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Environment and meet with senior officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defence and the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau. Sri Lanka signed the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty on October 24, 1996 and a facility agreement with the organisation in June 2000, which led the way for the establishment of an auxiliary seismological station in Pallekele, Kandy as part of the international monitoring system to verify compliance with the CTBT. The key objective of the CTBT is to ban nuclear explosions by everyone, everywhere, above ground, underwater and underground. The visit is expected to further strengthen cooperation between Sri Lanka and the CTBTO. Russia is prepared to enter into an agreement to build a nuclear power plant in Sri Lanka if the Sri Lankan government grants permission. The Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Russian Federation to Sri Lanka recently said that the Russian Federation is prepared to provide Sri Lanka with financial or technical support for the construction of the nuclear power plant if the local government approves the plans.
A cross-sector leadership program which included a panel discussion on restructuring of state-owned enterprises and impacts beyond was held on Wednesday. The event was organized by the Sri Lanka Institute of Development Administration.
Given the context of the country and the suspicion we have of this government, of any government, when it comes to restructuring equals privatizing, we are very suspicious. So I think given what we went through, the crisis and all that challenge, they should have said transparency. Our report will be held up for public discussion. Now if we had that report, we could have been sure that they are not talking about breaking things up and selling it to the lowest bidder. But we don't know that. But the strategic assets, management of strategic assets is so important. So the first and foremost, any committee should have members of the public who are the public interest. We can bring the best economic policy in the world, but if it's on a corrupted environment, it would be difficult. But having said that, we also can't wait till the uncorrupted DSN Kumara arrives to get these reforms done, because we are hitting against the wall. We are running against the clock. Most of the companies are moving to East Asia not because of the electricity prices. It is because of their efficiency levels and the low regulatory barriers. Look at what's happening in Thailand. Look at what's happening in Vietnam. They are very competitive. In Sri Lanka, for you to open a company, you have to go to, it's impossible.
The commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force and the incumbent president of the Defence Services Sports Board, Air Marshal Sudarshana Pathirana, was conferred with the distinguished honour of the officer title in the Order of Merit by CISM.
The CISM Order of Merit may be conferred by the Board of Directors on anyone who, by his or her actions, has demonstrated the ideas and goals of CISM. Generally, the recipient would be an individual of eminent stature in the field of physical education or sport, and an individual who, by personal performance or by contribution to the development of sports in the armed forces, rendered exceptional service to the cause of CISM. Throughout his illustrious career, Air Marshal Sudarshana Pathirana has made significant contributions to the development of military sports in Sri Lanka. His leadership as the President of the Defence Services Sports Board has been instrumental in fostering and promoting sports within the defence community.
Moving on to more local developments, fuel prices have been revised with effect from midnight today. Let's take a look at the new fuel prices. 92 octane has been reduced by 15 rupees to 318 rupees. 95 octane petrol increased by 20 rupees to 385 rupees. Lanka Super Diesel has been increased by 10 rupees to 340 rupees, and kerosene has been reduced by 50 rupees to 245 rupees. More details on this story is available on our website www.newsfirst.lk. Moving on, the American Alumni Association of Sri Lanka donated 40 metric tons of rice to Sri Lanka on Wednesday to support disadvantaged urban families in the country. The rice will benefit 4,000 households.
The stock of rice will be distributed to families residing in the districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Galle. This significant donation was secured by the American Alumni Association of Sri Lanka from the Bridgeforth Farms in Alabama, USA. The American Alumni Association comprises American alumni residing in Sri Lanka. A press conference and token giveaway was hosted by the association in Colombo today to commemorate the occasion. Speaking at the event, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, iterated on the 75 years of diplomatic relations enjoyed by the two nations.
You already know that the U.S. government is a strong partner here in Sri Lanka, and we have provided significant assistance. As the General said, there is much need. And so in the past year, the U.S. has provided over $270 million in new assistance to give fertilizer for over 1 million paddy farmers all around the country, for lunch, school lunches for school children, to help small and medium enterprises get back on their feet. But what's amazing today is that it's not just a government-to-government relationship we have here. It's the generosity of the American people and of the relationships that we form when we study together, when we do business together, and when we respect one another.
Delegates representing the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union who arrived in Sri Lanka to attend the Intellectual Property and Legal Committee meeting and Forum 2023 visited the Ganga Ramaya Temple in Colombo on Wednesday.
The Intellectual Property and Legal Committee meeting and Forum 2023, which was held in partnership with the Capital Maharaja Group and the ABU, concluded yesterday. The delegates who attended the forum visited the temple and obtained blessings. They were accompanied by Ravi Gamage, General Manager of Group Human Resources of the Capital Maharaja Group.
The LOLC Divi Savya program that aims to support the education of Sri Lankan children continued in the Ampara district on Wednesday.
The LOLC Divi Savya program delivers school books and stationery to the most impoverished students in the country. This worthy initiative is a collaboration between the LOLC group and the Ministry of Education. The LOLC Divi Savya program took place at the Ampara Education Zone, Tirukkovil Education Zone and the Akkarepattu Education Zone in the Ampara district. School books and stationery items were delivered among the students at the St. John's Vidyalaya, Munekkadu Government Tamil School, Kanchirankuda Vidyalaya, Thankavelayudapuram Vidyalaya and several other schools in the Tirukkovil Education Zone. School books and stationery items were delivered among the students of the Kotmale Vidyalaya, Mahakandya Vidyalaya, Beheragala Vidyalaya and Galkanda Vidyalaya in the Ampara Education Zone. School books and stationery items were also delivered among the students of several schools in the Akkarepattu Education Zone under the LOLC Divi Savya program.
And with that, we wrap up Primetime News for today. But do stay with News First as Face the Nation is coming up next. Good night and take care.